Tuesday, October 11th. My name is Ryan McClency, and today I'm going to be joined by none other than TJ Downing. But before we get into all of that, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or if you're just listening, give us a 5-star review. But with that, let's get after it. TJ, welcome. Welcome to the pod. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Good morning, Scoop Nation. Good morning, Ryan.
How's the morning treating you?
It's going good, man. I'll tell you what. It's a bye week, so we all can take a collective sigh of relief and just hope that everybody's health is good.
Yeah.
Everybody that is banged up is on the mend, recouping. Not really a tough week of practice. So I know a lot of coaches are out there doing some recruiting stuff. I know a lot of the players will be doing some therapy. So us as fans now, we can just kind of sit back and watch what the rest of the college football world does and just kind of sit back in the driver's seat knowing that to this point we've handled our business.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, and that's actually, I'm curious since you've been on both sides of the bye week, both as a player and now as a fan. So how does it differ? I mean, what were kind of some of the things that you looked forward to as a player in the bye week that now it's kind of like, just obviously very different as a fan, having to kind of sit by and wait?
I think it was kind of what I just mentioned there about getting to watch everybody else. It's such a rat race to get the season off and going in the right direction. When you're a highly ranked team, there's a lot of pressure. There's the target on your back, and typically you'll have what we did. We always had a big non-conference game, which the Buckeyes had Notre Dame, and then you got a couple cake games, which we've had that too, and then a couple early Big Ten games, which we've been able to run through those with Michigan State, Rutgers, Wisconsin. I think to me it was cool to be able to see what everybody else was doing and kind of just take a step back from it all, take a step back from the grind. If there were some bumps and bruises, to be able to sit back, get a little bit extra therapy, know that you're not going to have, which is typically Monday was your day off, and then Tuesday, Wednesday was just an absolute grinder for practice. You had full contact with the inside drill, inside run. You had 101D at the end of practice. You had your one-on-one pass rush. So to be able to take a week off of that, which most of these guys haven't done that since the first week of August. So as we're already heading into the middle of October, that's kind of a relief, especially on your legs, the upper body, the hitting, the contact. To be able to take a couple of days off from that is pretty nice.
Do you prefer then like kind of this point in the season, or I guess would later in the season typically be looked at as just kind of like a little bit too far into the season, too far kind of like with those bumps and bruises? I feel like this is a pretty solid week to typically have a bye week. It's not too early, not too late either.
Yeah, I think this is a good point. I wouldn't want it any later.
Yeah.
I think with it being right now, especially as I mentioned, if you're a team that is highly ranked and you've handled your business up to this point, you haven't had any blemishes, which we've seen a couple teams around the country. It's it's bit them. So to know that you've done that, to know that you can kind of sit back, chill a little bit, take a deep breath, maybe go and see some family. A lot of guys, myself, I remember one of the bye weeks we had Brian Hartline and I. We went back and we watched Glen Oak play Hoover, which
nice.
We considered our rival. We didn't play them week 10, but we looked at Hoover as our rival because they were right next to us, only 5 miles down the road. So I know we went back home to watch a game. Just like I mentioned, a lot of coaches will be out there on the recruiting trail going to see some different prospects. And so, yeah, it was. I think it's a good point. It's the midway point. You go too deep, I don't like how that throws off your rhythm. I think it hits well that we're going to come back with a struggling Iowa team.
Yeah.
So I think this is the exact perfect spot to have it.
Yeah, struggling Iowa, but very physical. I expect that'll be a tough game, especially just in the trenches for everybody. So, it's definitely good to have the extra week, get everybody extra healthy, get everybody kind of just in a good spot, and then go play a physical team before you play probably the first test, going to Penn State thereafter. And not a bad week to have bye weeks with all the games this weekend. So you get some good watching if you are trying to check out some of the other teams and see what else is going on in the landscape. So should be an interesting weekend in college football. But let's take a look back at this past weekend's game. Michigan State, first true road game of the season. Um, what were some of the takeaways that you came out of that game with? Obviously, as we talked a little bit before we started here, is an ass kicking. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of good that can be taken. But just curious, kind of your general thoughts on the game, what you saw, kind of in a game script or game plan, kind of mentality, and anybody that stuck out.
Well, I think first the run game. With losing Evan Pryor early in training camp, knowing that you want to be able to build some depth there, we knew what we were going to get with Trev. We knew what we'd get with Mayan, and I think Mayan even a little banged up. To be able to see Dallas come in there and have some good runs, you have to have depth.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're playing a Big Ten schedule, I don't care what anybody says when they talk about the Big Ten being down and really it's just Ohio State, Michigan. That I kind of laugh at that at times because that if you're Ohio State or Michigan, you're going to
Yeah.
get every other Big Ten team's best shot. You said it too, Ryan. Penn State's going to be a grinder.
Yep.
That's going to be a tough one. You're going to have depth at the running back position. We all know that the Big Ten, we pride ourselves on who can establish the run first, earliest in the game, who can maintain it throughout the game. We're fortunate and lucky to have a guy like C.J. Stroud
Hmm.
who can play off of that run well, put up big numbers, and has himself positioned right now for the Heisman Trophy race. But knowing the contact, the physicality that these running backs are going to take, the punishment that they're going to take, you have to be able to build depth there. We all thought that Evan Pryor losing him early in training camp, that was like, ooh,
Yeah.
this is going to be a shot. Who's going to step up if one of the other guys gets dinged up? So to see some of that work coming from the running back room, and they're really talking more about CJ after he threw that pick six. That was only his third interception of the season. Uh, the only one that went for a touchdown. But that can get in a quarterback's head.
Hmm.
I know that C.J. Stroud is better than that. He's not going to let that waver his confidence. His confidence is like up here compared to everybody
Yeah.
else's. So to see him come back and throw a 69-yard touchdown pass after that, I think was one of the best things that I saw because it showed that I guess the old adage that quarterbacks use water off a duck's back.
Hmm.
He just let that pick six roll off his back, came back out, went about his business. It didn't affect him, and he dropped a 69-yard
Yeah.
dime.
Yeah, threw 5 more touchdowns after that too, which is pretty good. A pretty good day at the office. And yeah, like especially in an atmosphere like that. I mean, you never want to give a team like Michigan State, who's been able to kind of be world beaters in the past, and
Yeah,
um, in their home environment. I mean, obviously the crowd was energized. It changed the atmosphere a lot, I think, for Michigan State, and that's something you never want to give that team a strong play at the beginning of a game. So his ability to really
no,
bounce back and take control of the rest of the game, and the defense too. Credit them for being able to also step up after that point and keep it pretty tight on the defensive side.
I guess that's kind of the point I was getting at there, which you kind of finished off for me is you don't want to give any of these guys life.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to sit here and say that Iowa is down, but if you give Kirk Ferentz life, he's a great football coach. He's won the Big Ten
Yeah.
before. He's been Big Ten Coach of the Year. He's played in the biggest games out there. So if you let them stick around, thinking that they're going into halftime only trailing by 7 or 10, that they're in this ball game, maybe they've got a 10-7 lead after
Hmm.
the first quarter. That's the one thing you don't want. Don't let these guys have life. Mel Tucker, everybody knows how much he's getting paid. He knows the Buckeyes through and through, being a coach there, being a part of
Yep.
that 02 national championship staff. You give a team like that life, they'll stick around and they can maybe present some challenges. Now, we have CJ Stroud on our side, so
Hmm.
that helps.
It only goes
Ryan
so
Day,
far.
Ryan Day calls a phenomenal game too. He's just got these guys so laser sharp, dialed in that it's different. It is
Yeah.
just different what's going on in Columbus.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think I'm grateful that the game's at home and not on the road, especially against Iowa. But
Yeah.
no, I 100% agree. I mean, it's there's a lot of commonality there, and we know historically that they've been able to beat top five teams pretty regularly, especially at home for them. And it's definitely not a game I think anybody would overlook. I think people are looking ahead towards that Penn State game, um, and it is nice to have the bye week ahead of that, in my opinion, because it does allow you to be able to kind of like compartmentalize that a little bit more, prepare a little bit more for both, and kind of make sure you still take care of business against Iowa before you go to Penn State. Um, and I did want to also bring up, because you mentioned the running back room. One of the things that stood out to me a little bit, and I don't know if it's maybe something that there's more wrinkles for, or something that'll be utilized with some of the depth concerns, but Xavier Johnson coming in at running back as well. I mean, Down Hayden had a great game. I think he averaged something like 5 yards a carry coming in, as the second stringer there behind Trey. But Xavier Johnson, I don't know, like, do you see that as being something that Ryan Day maybe plans to utilize more with either him or even Chip Tranum?
Well, that's an interesting case there. I like what they do with Xavier Johnson. I think he's really just become like a utility guy. You can kind of plug him in a lot of different spots. You can use him off jets. You can use him out of the backfield. You can plug him in at slot. Put him out wide. Let him run routes. I mean, he can really do it all. Chip to me is a guy. I was high on him. I called a lot of his games when he was at Archbishop Hoban. I called or got a chance to see a lot of his games when he was at Arizona State. Was a huge fan of him, and I mentioned to Kirk and C and the guys the other night that when I saw him running the ball at Arizona State, I thought I was looking at a guy that was going to be playing on Sundays
Yeah,
running the rock. I mean, that's how impressive he looked. So when they brought him in here and they said, okay, we're gonna have him play linebacker, and he was the first guy to get his stripe removed, and then he becomes probably the biggest kick returner in the country when you drop him back there
yeah,
deep. You've got to know, if you're Ryan Day, if you're Coach Alford, in the back of your pocket that this dude probably at any given moment you could line him up there in the backfield, even if he hasn't taken any reps in practice, as long as he knows scheme wise, terminology wise, just what is going on, that boy can run the rock.
hmm,
And I want to see more of him. I'm a huge Demonte Trainum fan, been for a long time. So I want to see him utilized in more ways than one. Get
yeah.
him in the game, and I think he will impact it.
Yeah, no, I think he's very much like that Xavier Johnson mold, Swiss Army knife. Get him
Yeah.
in, let him see the field, and he can do a lot of different things. I think coming in, maybe they were more worried about linebacker depth, but with
Yeah.
especially with Evan Pryor being healthy at the time, and so now that that's maybe more of a concern, I definitely think it makes more sense. And with the way that Eichenberg and Steel Chambers have been playing all year, I mean, again, another great game from Eichenberg. What he had, 8 tackles, half sack. Uh, he was all over the place. I remember the one. It was a Thorn had broken out of the pocket, was running towards the sideline, and just looked like Eichenberg was shot out of a cannon. Got him right at the line of scrimmage and stopped a potentially like first down run. Um, but I think they've been playing great, and I guess so. Do you see that kind of as being part of the reason why they maybe are trying to get him a little more involved there? Or I guess I would think they would try to push that now.
Yeah, I think you want to push to be able to build depth anywhere you can. Again, when we talk about running backs, the running back room having to have depth the further you get into the Big Ten schedule, I think the same goes for the linebackers
Yeah.
because those go hand in hand. Those linebackers are coming up and delivering those punishing blows on those running backs. So you're going to start to see more shoulder stuff. You're going to start to see some bumps and bruises. Funny little story for you. I want to say it's got to be about 4 years ago now, 4 maybe 5. But one of the first games I ever did play by play was up in Saint Ignatius, and they were hosting Hoban. So I got to
Hmm.
see Trainum and Eichenberg go head to head against each other, and that was fun to watch.
Yeah.
I didn't at that point. I believe Tommy was committed to Boston College, and then I think he decommitted and signed to Ohio State. His linebackers coach, who now has taken over for Chico Kyle as head coach, was Ryan Franziger, who graduated with me in the 2006 class at Ohio State. And I know Ryan Franziger was in his ear, like, "Hey man, we got to get you down. We got to get you in as a Buckeye." And I think that's been a huge bright spot to be able to get
Yeah.
Eichenberg in there to see the development that he's made. But it was cool to see those two go battle against each other. You don't always get to see that Ignatius Hoban matchup, so that was a fun one. I think I I would like to see those two side by side right next to each other. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be fun to watch.
Yeah.
But I you're right though. Swiss Army is the perfect word. You get deep in the season and you get some guys that you get some depth issues at certain spots. Chip's a guy that you could really plug and play anywhere.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of in that with a few different positions, but I think we have a lot of guys that can bounce around, in that same regard, like a Lathan Ransom, or a lot of like the secondary can kind of be interchangeable in different roles there if need be. Granted, it's still a pretty thin room,
Yeah.
and they haven't played great to start the season. They haven't played bad. I think they've been in a lot of really great positions. I think they're playing pretty well when it comes to actually playing the man in front of them. But they are getting thrown into bad positions. And I think they're just not looking back for the ball. And I think that's the biggest kind of like knock on that room. But from a holistic standpoint, I've seen them playing really well, and it's obviously evidence shows in the numbers. I think we have a top 10 pass defense.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not a bad pass defense. I think we as fans are going to look at penalties and pass interference calls, and anytime somebody catches the ball, it's like, oh, they're trash. It's going to happen. Like,
Right.
relax.
Calm
But
down, pump the brakes.
yeah, but
And what we've dealt with over the last couple of years,
yeah, yeah,
we've,
yeah,
we've had some great defensive backs come through, but with some of the defenses that the schemes that have been out there, we've talked a lot about how Jim Knowles, I think, is worth his weight in gold, what he's kind of done transforming this defense. But we've seen some stuff in the past. It's been like a head scratcher, like, oh, geez, here we go again. So,
hmm
yeah, I understand how you feel. I feel the same way sometimes too.
yeah. I gotta constantly remind myself. I'm like, it's not bad. It's not bad. Everything's good. We're good.
Still top 10, we'll take it.
Right, right. Well, the last thing here I had was just to go through scoop stickers. So I don't know if you've listened to it before. Scoop stickers is something that I've kind of started just as a way of saying, if we were to be able to give out a helmet sticker to anybody from this past weekend's game, who are those people, both offensively and defensively? I think obviously, people like Stroud, Harrison from this past weekend deserve multiples with the games that they had. Harrison breaking the tie with Joey Galloway as well for the most 3 touchdown games in still with a year to play, a year and a half to play, is phenomenal. But who on the team would you say performed well enough to earn a sticker this weekend?
Well, on the defensive side, I think we stick with Steel Chambers. You brought him up. I think he's continuously, as the season's gone along, gotten better and better and better each week. But for me, really offensively, the job that Paris Johnson is doing, I think he's put
Yeah,
himself in the upper echelon. Right now, I think if the season ended today, he'd be a first team All American and he'd have a tree in Buckeye Grove. When you look at his numbers, I know there's different PFF rankings and this and that, but I mean, there's a big reason why you mentioned CJ came back and threw 5 touchdown
yeah,
passes after that pick six, because between him and Dewan, the protection is there. We used to have an old saying. Troy Smith gave us these little charms that said it was a play off of a quarter. In God we trust. He
hmm
put on there, in the QB we trust, and on the backside it said the protection, because the QB is only as good as the protection.
yeah,
So Paris, what he's done, and I was so fond of And shout out to Thayer Munford. Got to watch him play some good reps last night for the Raiders. What Nick and Thayer did for like over a certain amount of snaps, not giving up any
Yeah.
pressures, was ridiculous. Paris and Dwan are doing the same thing, and Paris to me he's put his name in there as probably the best tackle in the country. So he's got to get a helmet sticker. He's got to get a Buckeye Scoop sticker for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one honorary mention that I want to give out, and that's G. Scott Jr.
Yep.
Loved seeing him get his first touchdown. He's somebody that I've really rooted for a lot over the past couple of years, just to get him on the field, to get him playing, because I think he's such a matchup just freak, especially at the tight end position. And I was really excited to see him get some snaps there late in the game, get a couple catches, and get that touchdown. But I'd give him one, and then Mike Hall too, 2.5 sacks. It's a solid game. Solid game from Mike Hall.
And you already know Ryan Day is in the lab right now, right? Yeah. And he's thinking, okay, how am I going to be able to use a package with Gee and Cade?
Yep.
One guy on this side, one guy on that side, cross them, do different motions. That's something right there. We talked with Kirk the other night about, do you show some of your trick plays early to keep people up at night thinking about, ooh, I got to worry about this? People are going to be worried now about that 2 tight end set.
Yeah. See, with if you have the right pieces, you don't have to show it because everybody's already worried. So then
right,
they know it's there. They just don't know what it's going to look like when it happens. So I think that's
the best problem in the country to have.
That's definitely not a bad one. I'm glad that it's our problem for other people to have to focus on, and not the other way around, though. But that's going to do it here for us. TJ, thank you again for joining the podcast this morning. Always appreciate you and having some conversation and giving your thoughts on the game and everything else.
Appreciate it, man. We'll be back with more.
And thank you, as always, Scoop Nation, for watching and or listening. As always, be sure to like, download, subscribe to this video, this podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we can continue to provide all of the content that you crave. And of course, all of this and so much more, always available at BuckeyeScoop.com, including the Ask the Insiders board, where you can join the incredible community of Buckeye fans on the premier site for all of your Ohio State needs. I am your host, Ryan McClincy. Until tomorrow, bye-bye.